Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Tonight, we are going to do our fourth annual year-end live stream. We are doing it in the beginning of the following year for the first time ever, but, Christmas fell on a Wednesday, so doing it the day after Christmas didn't seem super fitting, even though we did a live stream the day after Christmas anyway, which was very timely at the time. So, with that said, I wanted to discuss the year in review of 2024. And what better way to start out with that than getting to the top 10 stories of the year? But first, I want you to know Evangelical Dark Web is a Christian news gathering and commentary ministry. Our goal is to be Christian news by Christians and for Christians. And in 2025, I do want to grow and expand this ministry rapidly. Would appreciate any support. The least you can do is like this video, subscribe to the channel, to the podcast if you are new, because new subscriptions are the best way to help a channel grow, by the way, on YouTube. Number one way. I don't know if anything else really even does anything. So, with that said, also check out my book, Winning Not Winsome, 10 Commandments of Spiritual Warfare. I do got to give a spoiler alert. This book did not win Book of the Year, which will be on our award show section of the live stream. But I think it's pretty good. You should check it out and get it. That's linked in the description below as well. And it went on sale on Amazon if you wanted the hard copy. That went on sale on Amazon. I have no control over the price. Just saying. So, with that said, you ready to dive into the top 10 stories of 2024?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right, let's pull it up, and here we go. This one, I actually did need some help with this list, and you gave this one to me. Number 10, we are going to dive into Big Eva's immigration treachery. So the Evangelical Industrial Complex, which we call Big Eva around here, has long been a proponent of open borders. Beginning in 2024, the Southern Baptist Convention made amnesty for illegal aliens a lobbying priority. Later, they would partner with a George Soros-backed group to promote a narrative that evangelicals supported amnesty. Moreover, while it was not surprising that many NGOs supported the invasion at the southern border, more surprising additions to this list include Send Relief of the Southern Baptist Convention and Franklin Graham's Samaritan's Purse. That latter one's really surprising because Franklin Graham is like your MAGA celebrity pastor. He's a Trump leg humper. And for him to fuel the southern border with Samaritan's Purse is, again, very duplicitous on his part. And he's lied about that too on Fox News. When Haitians would overrun in every town in Ohio, Big Eva would support the Haitian invaders who were fraudulently processed as refugees. This would stand opposed to evangelicals as a voting bloc who voted overwhelmingly to support a popular mandate of mass deportations as part of Trump's 2024 victory. Even after this, Big Eva continued to support amnesty. And there's a lot of links in this section because we've covered a lot of the stories here.
Yeah, for those that are like new to the channel or just new to who we are, yeah, a lot of the stuff we did earlier in 2024, this is why I pitched this as a top 10 stories because for years the Big Eva and all these like NGOs have been profiteering and otherwise facilitating the invasion of this country. And we've always heard from a lot of these institutions, Christian institutions like, Gospel Coalition, Christianity Today, and of course, even our own denominations that, hey, we got to support the refugees at the border. There's a crisis at the border. We got to support them. And what you actually find is on the bottom end, or I guess I should say the South American end, that's where Franklin Graham and Samaritan's Purse partner with a UN organization to basically aid refugees from, I guess, Venezuela and Colombia. Which again, I mean, when they give the UN initiative money, I mean, part of that initiative actually sponsors reproductive health, which is basically code for abortion. So that's what Samaritan's Purse does. And then if you go towards the border, that's where Send Relief is. And there's even a video that I linked in the article that actually shows the people at one of the sites that the SBC sponsors being handed money, and you can tell it's in $10 increments. So that is one of those places where, you know, these immigrants are receiving money as they're being bussed elsewhere into the country. So
yeah, it's important to note that like Franklin Graham's Samaritan Purse was fueling, like, I don't know what you would call it. It's not, obviously it's not the Silk Road. I think Cocaine Road would be a little too complimentary. But whatever you want to call it, the road that people travel to cross the southern border, Samaritan's Purse was helping
I call it
facilitate
a
that
conveyor belt, and so
conveyor.
they're
Okay,
at the
yeah,
beginning of the conveyor belt, and then SBC's at the end. And yeah, there's a
right.
lot of organizations that do this, that, you know, they brand themselves as Christians, but they're not ran as Christians. But a lot of the ones that the SBC, obviously they brand themselves as Christian, but the SBC and Center Relief, they're partnering with like the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship and like the General Baptist of Texas. So they're basically partnering with all the Baptist churches that left them over the conservative resurgence. And surprise, surprise, these liberal churches are sponsoring an invasion of our country.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that's a surprise to no one. And next on the list is the fall of Alistair Begg. Alistair Begg was once a highly respected Reformed preacher. In January of 2024, Evangelical Dark Web, that was us actually, that broke the story of the advice that he gave a grandmother encouraging her to attend a homosexual wedding. This created a major controversy for the otherwise scandal-free minister. But rather than repent for his sinful counsel, Alistair Begg doubled down and chastised American evangelicals for their lack of nuance. Begg was canceled from major conferences and ministries due to his compromise on homosexual weddings. This happened back in January, whereas the first story was a year-round thing. This was a January story that stayed in the top 10 all year.
Yeah, I mean, this is one that, again, we made this story a national cycle, as far as like a lot of people in Con Inc. were talking about this. And it really just shows how antinomian a lot of like churches and leadership is. Because again, if you actually looked at what the Bible would say you're to do in this situation, it would resemble something like disowning the relative in question that would be committing this sin. And it doesn't matter whether it's homosexuality or even, you know, the daughter goes on OnlyFans. Like the idea that you should be in, I guess, communion might be or in fellowship with a relative that does certain sins is ridiculous and completely antithetical to what the entirety of scriptural counsels. Because I use David and Absalom as the case where, you know, David's son commits murder and he's essentially in exile, and that was the proper thing to do. So like, you don't welcome him back to the palace. That was not the right thing to do for David. But most pastors would counsel, hey, yeah, you're supposed to, like, you know, love them back to Jesus rather than, like, you know, give them punishment that is a precursor to the punishment that is to come.
Yeah, this train of the top 10 stories is like a list of pastoral scandals.
Yeah, I mean, this is
you should have seen the pastoral scandals that don't make the list. So what are we at, number 8? Fall of Robert Morris. I didn't number these in the article. So Gateway Church was once the largest megachurch in the United States until Robert Morris confessed to having committed child molestation. This is after he got caught, of course. A continued course of conduct for years. Apparently, Robert Morris lied about his past to elders, and the failure of all involved for their failure to report to police in 1987 led to a major embarrassment for the church and one of multiple scandals for the megachurch in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Gateway Church would then do a major staff overhaul and face a lawsuit from congregants over financial infidelity. Part of that staff overhaul is they brought in Max Lucado to be their preacher hireling on Sunday mornings. So they've had a lot of changes and scandals at Gateway Church. Robert Morris being the I don't want to say the catalyst, because it was like the major hole and breach in the hall of the church.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of stories this year about Dallas-Fort Worth area churches that, you know, scandal here, scandal there, bad teaching here and there.
Yeah, TD Jakes, Tony Evans,
And we even covered
Steve Lawson.
We even covered
next.
Prestonwood on like at least 3 examples. We covered Prestonwood. and various things happening there. So a lot of just happenstance here. And yeah, this one's not impactful overall for the church as a whole, but it was a major story that happened in 2024.
Yeah. Next, I got to go with Steve Lawson at number 7. In the Reformed world, Steve Lawson was a major deal and perhaps the successor to John MacArthur's audience. However, Steve Lawson lived a double life, having an adulterous relationship with a woman nearly a third his age. Additionally, he was not a pastor and not functionally a member of Trinity Bible Church. Despite this glaring ecclesiastical deficiency, Lawson was platformed in ecclesiocentric circles such as G3 Ministries, Grace to You, and the Master's Seminary. To make matters worse, Steve Lawson has not repented.
Yeah, I mean, this one also a major scandal that, it actually is a lot more impactful for the church overall than even Robert Morris, even though,
a lot more impactful for this channel.
The actions of Lawson were probably not as sinful, or certainly were not as sinful as that of what Morris was accused and I guess has confessed to have done. And we're still not even sure exactly what happened with Lawson and the girl, other than that, even though they claim it wasn't sexual, there clearly seems like there had to have been something in the background. And yeah,
I don't know how you keep a girl on 20s in her ice like that, who's already a little bit loose for older married men. Just saying, I don't know how that works. I don't know how a person sins like that, but does not cross the line of fornication. So, and yeah, like Veritax points out, he wasn't an actual pastor, which is part of the scandal, because he was paraded around in circles that, frankly, some of these people believe in giving pastors too much authority, like over people's lives. Like, some of these people are actually would be tyrants in their own congregation, at least the way they talk about church authority on the internet. They would be tyrants to their own congregation. And yet, they celebrated Steve Lawson, who not only was Steve Lawson nowhere to be found on most relevant issues, which I almost added a jab like that in the article. It's like, if you're wondering why Steve Lawson has not been relevant on major issues concerning the church, yeah, consider the fact that he's living a double life.
I mean, that also could be said of Alistair Begg, because we had never actually written an article about Alistair Begg at all.
Or Steve Lawson.
Until, like, obviously the scandals and stuff happened. So it does kind of, and again, he's what, 72, so he's already kind of like on his way out, so to speak. And yeah, I don't understand how this happened, but it was a major story that impacted a lot of churches, and it showed a lot of gaps in oversight, especially with regards to Trinity. Like, and then they kind of did the whole he's a lead preacher versus Pat, which again makes no sense, but
they hid that in plain sight.
Yeah.
But they used goodwill they allowed the goodwill of his ministry to overlook a glaring deficiency. Like, these people never checked out his website to make a bio for a conference, or the church's website, I should say. So, where are we at? So we're at 5 now, we're at 5 now, right? Number 5, beginnings of national revival. So this is a little more speculative in nature. So 2024 is a year with many high-profile celebrity conversions, with Russell Brand, Nala Ray, Hulk Hogan, and others indicating a national revival might be underway in America. Bible sales would similarly indicate a positive trend in this direction. While the conversion of Brand is debated, and Jordan Peterson and Denzel Washington have claimed Christianity without a credible profession of faith, the revival appears to be underway, and in my estimation, is being driven by young white males, the people that Big Eva has spent decades alienating. This is the beginning of what years from now will be marked as a period of revival, and thus a major story in 2024.
Yeah, this one's kind of it. Might not have made a lot of people's top 10s, but obviously if you start piecing together like, oh, this person, Russell Brand, even the Nala Ray, which again, I think that one's a lot more dubious, especially with regards to her husband, who I think is also kind of a little nuts if you actually look into him. So, but yeah, Russell Brand, where it's like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, and how his faith has managed, and he still kind of makes it a little bit about himself. But if you go beyond the celebrities, the cultural shift is there. And a lot of these like people, obviously, as you kind of mentioned, they spent years chastising the white males in favor of minority pushes. We got to make the church more diverse, which basically is a fancy word for less white. And we got to have minority programs at our seminaries instead of most of your pastors for SBC are probably going to be young white males. And that's what the revival would have to look like in in a country like America. And you're starting to see that. And there's a vibe shift happening. And a lot of people, and we'll probably mention it later on, but a lot of people are still chastising, the young men. And this goes to like Wilson and James White, the people that you think, okay, they're like already in the stage, already in prime position to take these men on and like lead them. They're also turning them away. So the church has to grapple with, hey, we have a revival happening. This is what it looks like. And a lot of these people, yeah, they need to be discipled. That's a good thing, but that's a continuous process.
Yeah, I mean,
and
the church spent decades alienating young white men, and to the irony, I believe that that's where the revival is happening in the United States, which is going to be demographically the case. But because majority of the country is white. But let me tag on the male part for a second here, because I'm not trying to be sexist or anything, but data shows, I believe it's from 1995 onward, young men are more church than young women from 1995 onward.
Yeah, and that's...
So if you look at the adult church population, 1995 is when that, as a birth year, is when that changes. Birth year, not year. So that is why I can credit that more to young men than young women.
So yeah,
and also Kamala Harris and Taylor Swift.
Yeah, that Zoomer shift of appealing that Trump was able to capitalize on is happening also in the church level. Yet a lot of times the church is chasing after the Swiftie when they should be chasing after the young gamer bro.
Yeah,
and the sad part is, again, going back to the people that should have been most in the driver's seat to take advantage of this are still turning it down. They still don't want the revival. They think it's gay.
All right. Shepherds for Sale exposes, number 4. Shepherds for Sale exposes Big Eva to a larger audience. Shepherds for Sale is definitely the book of the year, exposing the corruption to mainstream conservative audience. It was a difficult process for this book to be published, and it exposed to a more casually Christian audience the evils of men like Russell Moore, J.D. Greer, David French, and more. The book garnered controversy for going after Gavin Ortlund, apparently ahead of the Overton window on exposing this liberal actor. Simply put, Megan Basham's work was able to teach even me some new aspects of corruption in Big Eva, and her book was a bestseller with a huge impact for a reason. So there's like a whole month, maybe a month and a half, where the news stories were dedicated to this book.
It wasn't about Trump getting shot and the Kamala Swift.
This was after Trump getting shot.
I know, but that whole month of July, it was Shepherds for Sale.
August and September, but yes.
And obviously, Gavin Ortlund's a big one as far as like, who's going to be like the rising face for like liberal Christianity. Probably him, even though he kind of quit on his church and like to become an online personality, which is
what Megan Basham specifically writes about Gavin Ortlund is that he is a type of messaging that they want to reach young people, that he is the packaging that they want.
Yeah, so he's known a lot of times for apologetics. So he had, which is a weird field where a lot of like liberal leaning evangelicals exist, because they can have the veneer of they're defending orthodoxy when on a lot of like social issues they don't.
All right, so I'm ready to get to number 3 now. No, this is actually, sorry, that was number 5. Shepherds for Sale was number 5. Fall of Syria threatens Christians. This is number 4. The downfall of the Assad regime threatens the livelihoods of Christians in Syria. As a global event, the downfall of a regime is a major story, but like most recent developments in the Middle East, it is the Christian populations that will suffer most.
Yeah, I mean, if we've learned one thing about forever wars, it's that it destroys the church wherever it goes. You know, it's kind of like the flying saucer in Independence Day. It just wipes out everything that's underneath it, and that's what American Zionist wars do. So.
All right, so number 3. This is a subject that we've covered a lot here on Evangelical Dark Web. Woke Wars 2. Among Christians who opposed wokeness as of 2021 and 2022, there was a split on the issue of modern Jews, with one side recognizing modern Jews as pagans on the same level as Islam, and the other side carving out a standard of sinful partiality reserved for this powerful demographic. As dispensationalism has been a subject of intensifying debate in evangelicalism, so too has the view of Jews in the modern age, with many evangelicals under the influence of John Hagee or adopting his erroneous view of church history. That's a link to James White and the his view on the Crusades, by the way. And fun fact, I had to correct this. It said James Hagee at first. I had to fix that typo. In contrast, many Christians are recovering more classical views of Jews, as well as being unable to ignore patterns of behaviors associated with this demographic. In Woke Wars 1, evangelicals leaders went woke for black people in light of the racism narrative promoted by liberal activists. Woke Wars 2 is the same war with Jews instead of blacks and anti-Semitism instead of racism. A major clash in this was over Tobias Riemenschneider slander scandal and Doug Wilson's failed Antioch Declaration.
Yeah, so this really correlates with the revival happening amongst young white men, is because young white men are looking for a nation. They're looking for that identity because people don't want corporatism and, you know, McDonald's logos and all that stuff to be their identity. They want something more transcendent to be their identity. And obviously, you know, Christianity fills that void, but there are other facets of identity, and most facets of your identity are unchosen. That's your family, that's your community, that's your nation, that's your race even. And part of this war is a denial of those things because liberalism, you know, deracinates humans from their innate identitarian characteristics, whether it be their family, their nation, and so forth. And that's as much a part of this as the noticing question, because when you see who is actually going to war against your nation, you'll notice that one group of people is in charge and they're promoting all the vice, they're, you know, homosexuality, like literally the entire Democrat social platform is promulgated by one group of people, and it's not the trade unions.
Yeah, because Trump is winning over a lot of those blue collar Democrats that used to be, you know, that just hated Republicans because of the corporatism thing. But things have flipped in the United States along the lines of where corporate America stands and where the working class stands. So, which also ties into the immigration question, which was the first number 10 issue on this list. So number two, SBC refuses to ban female pastors. The Southern Baptist Convention had a chance to ban female pastors, keeping with the Baptist Faith and Message 2000, although it's kind of the Baptist Faith and Message 2023 because they amended it. Despite fighting a conservative resurgence decades ago on this issue, which forced a lot of liberals out of the SBC, the Southern Baptist Convention has many churches with female pastors, of which Rick Warren was merely a high-profile example. Instead, Southern Baptists voted to protect female pastors with the full endorsement of their institutional leaders and recent presidents.
Yeah, I mean, I do call feminism the number one issue that's impacting the church today, and even as you're seeing politics becoming more feminism versus, you know, tradition, so to speak, you're seeing that still play out in the church, and the church is lagging behind society and trying to rebuff and even confront feminism. And you're seeing that in the Southern Baptist Convention when they can't even ban female pastors despite it being explicitly, you know, prohibited in scripture.
I mean, it was embarrassing for the Southern Baptists to be at this point because they have so many, like Brent Leatherwood's church. He is a cooperative program entity head, has female pastors. I remember reporting on that. I didn't know it was his church, and that their church filed a fraudulent DMCA takedown request on me for screenshotting their website. So that's the type of church that we're dealing with. And for exposing the fact that they had female pastors, they came after me for that, and they lost because they weren't willing to go to court.
And just to like point out how big the female pastor issue is, like you had like what is it? Which call it the Reformed Theological Seminary that did a whole video of their incoming seminary class, and like half the cafeteria room looks like it's female, and that's Ligon Duncan that promoted that video. So it's not just the SBC where this issue is major. Obviously, I think I covered the Australian Lutherans who approved women's ordination, and even like Calvin Robinson's a little weak on that issue because we published a story about him defending a woman getting trashed in the comment section for being ordained either as Church Anglican or Church of England. So it is an issue everywhere in the globe, and it is the biggest issue confronting the church, and that's why it's number 2.
Number 1, I think this is a pretty easy one. White evangelicals drive Donald Trump to victory. Contrary to belief, the church was not divided on whether to support Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, but rather Donald Trump or not voting at all. But the Christians who did vote voted overwhelmingly, 82%, for Donald Trump being a critical bloc for Trump's resounding victory in 2024. This story highlights the disparity between the laymen and the clergy who are to the left of their flock. It also highlights the disparity between white evangelicals and every other religious demographic, especially modern Jews. One of the few blocks that Kamala Harris improved upon. This election further highlighted the futility of the term Judeo-Christian.
I mean, not just Jews, but also gays, and apparently, 60% of Indians also voted for Kamala Harris. But yes, this was, the Stephen Wolfe tweet: "White evangelicals are the lone bulwark against moral insanity in America," and it proved it once again. And of course, MAGA hat to, and again, it goes to show that all the Big Eva third wayism, the promoting of the American Solidarity Party, and the constant attempts to morally equivocate between Biden or Kamala and Donald Trump, while they're completely fine with the Democrat agenda, it's always, kiss left, punch right. And that, those chickens are just, the dog's not hunting. The chickens came home to roost, and, they went for Donald Trump.
Right. So it definitely seems that way. And I could have added to the fact that evangelicals for Kamala Harris was a major fail because they tried to astroturf that so much. But at the end of the day, the liberal Christians didn't really show up for Kamala Harris in the same way that they might have shown up for Joe Biden.
So, well, even still, no one's listening to their messaging anymore. I mean, they tried to like guilt trip us on the Haitians. Oh, how dare you demonize the Haitian? They're not eating the dogs, even though, if you've been in those communities, and if you live in like South Florida, where a lot of those people are, you probably know, that stuff happens. They sacrifice chickens to voodoo or whatever for voodoo. And then, so it happens. It is real. And, you import the third world, you become the third world.
And apparently, even if you come from that culture, running cars into people is still the thing there, I guess.
We should have known that after, they ran airplanes into buildings. But anyway, we imported more Muslims after 9/11 than we had before.
Yeah, it was kind of a dumb idea, if you think.
Well, you had a lot of these Big Eva types. I think Ray Ortlund did the whole what Biden never what was it? Trump never Trump, always Jesus or something. Like he did something like that then got roasted.
This time Kamala.
Yeah. So you see a lot of the people
that was Ray Ortlund that did that, I thought.
Yeah. But a lot of the people were doing everything they could to like counter signal Trump, and at the end of the day, it still happened. Abolitionists as well for different reasons.
Again, at least those people, after the election's over, we can at least come back together on most things. We'll see about other controversies throughout the year, but
and you
the G3 people have always kind of been purity spiralers.
Well, the other thing you did see,
we'll talk more about that probably next
is that you're also seeing maybe a couple shifts in the clergy towards the Republicans. Like obviously, like, you know, we talked a little bit about Josh Howerton this year, kind of, you know, even though he's like egalitarian, but he's still kind of like following in that Mark.
He used to be pretty woke though, or at least soft woke.
I mean, Matt Chandler's kind of softening the wokeness a little bit. Obviously, he's not perfect, and even the feminists don't like him because of his dealings. So maybe there's a transformation there.
JD Greer is trying to rebrand himself, even though he also supported female pastors in the SBC. So again, don't buy it. He's a wolf.
So yeah, you're going to see a lot of two faces emerge that, you know, they were completely woke, liberal, so forth. And they're going to try to like get back on your good side using the cultural tide. And some more genuine than others.
Yeah, I don't know if Josh Howerton's really he's like inauthentic about it, but I know JD Greer would be. So with that said, I think I'm ready to do. Hold on, it should say. Here we go. Lower third. 2024 4th annual Eva Awards.
Says third.
It says fourth right here. It did say third. I just had to fix that. So with that said, some of these are going to be chosen by the patrons of Evangelical Dark Web, which is another reason to support. You get to not only support that, but you get some extra content and you get to decide research directions. And in this case, the polls, some of the polls, some of these awards are determined by the polls. So with that said, best teacher, who you got for best teacher?
So this one, I think it's time to give the man his flowers. I picked Stephen Wolfe for spearheading the renaissance of Christian political thought and a lot of the Retrieval Project. He is kind of the embodiment of that spirit. And the case for Christian nationalism has been a topic for now going on 2 years. And I think it's time to give the man his flowers.
He won.
Crown him best teacher in the church of 2024.
He won in 2022 for the book
of the year, but not teacher.
He got flowers.
I think he needs another bouquet, and a lot of the intellectual capital of, or I guess the intellectual wherewithal of rejecting modernity, rejecting liberalism, is being spearheaded by Stephen Wolfe, who's given people the reading, so to speak, to actually confront and to actually confront the spirit of the age while giving us a theological framework to advance instead of what we've been given.
See, this is meant to be a pastor award, and I actually have Joel Webbin for this.
So we gave Russell Fuller.
Yeah, but he's a seminary.
Stephen Wolfe's a doctor.
I mean, he was a seminary professor. And I think we've given him the award once or twice even. But here's why I believe that Joel Webbin should get the award, is because of how he defended his church member and was, again, showing Doug Wilson how to do it. How to reach young people and how to disciple young people. To not be, what's the word? Spurging out? I'll just say spurging out because, you don't have to... be Doug, you don't have to go full BoomerCon like Doug Wilson does.
Like, he actually counsels someone while acknowledging that, hey, look, there's some legitimate like, he actually acknowledges that the person's had legitimate grievances in what they were noticing, rather than denying that the problem even exists, or attributing noticing to jealousy or otherwise sinful motives, as Doug Wilson does, which is that's already a logical fallacy.
Yeah, or pretending that all groups are equal in the manifestations of how they sin, which is what I believe Michael O'Fallon was just arguing earlier today. And that is a major talking point of or deciding point of Woke Wars 2 is the whole thing about, do all groups sin equally and the same? It's like, not really, not at all. And you just got to recognize that. And if so, why? Like, it's not entirely genetic, but it's mostly cultural and religious. So we got to actually think about these things, not just make blanket things about, oh, it's just the ideas that, or it's just political thought, or it's just, I don't even know what excuses they're trying to make to not notice or to denounce noticing. The Antioch statement or declaration is absolute cringe on this point. And that was the worst thing that they could have done because it's backfired spectacularly against them. And they have not updated the list of signatures since Thanksgiving night. Let that sink in. So I'm going to give it to Joel Webben just because this is supposed to be like a pastor award. Stephen Wolf is a doctor, right? Yeah. But I don't believe he's actually a professor anywhere or a pastor. He's a layman.
Yeah, he's not, but
he's a guy with a podcast, and I think we should have like a podcast award, but we currently don't. So I'm going to give it to Joel Webben. I'll give him an honorable mention though. Worst teacher. This was a voted on issue. So let me pull up the ballots. So let me give you the most up-to-date version of the ballots. Well,
I mean, I'll just go ahead and say I picked Neil Shenby for this because he is kind of like the James Lindsay inside the church.
See, I have him for a different award.
So I think he's the worst in that he's most dangerous as well.
Wow. The patrons have spoken. Not what I would have picked. The patrons have said Alistair Begg.
I mean, there's a great argument to be had there, given that he did defend bad theology. He is even going more in that gospel coalition direction as far as his teaching goes, even though he is kind of like on his way out, so to speak. And he's, I won't say in decline, and took a huge reputational hit in the past year, which is a big deal considering he was always very reputable.
Yeah, I would have gone with Steve Lawson for worst teacher of the year, but the patrons have chosen Alistair Begg. So I must honor that. To my shock. I'm not going to say democracy doesn't work.
I mean, the argument is
there, but the argument is there. Ouch, Tom. That being said, Church Hero. What do you have for that?
So this one, I actually did have Joel Webben for being not necessarily like, because I don't necessarily think he's the greatest theologian we have today, but I think he's more of a warrior. He's the guy that's actually willing to go out into the valley and fight Goliath, whereas a lot of pastors are just not willing to fight. And yeah, I mean, he has a lot of like various things going on to where he can insulate himself from cancel culture, which you would think a lot of pastors would be unafraid to take up the fights that Joel Webben is taking. But he's the one that's actually doing it. Like pastors are, you can't necessarily cancel your pastor. Like corporate America can't cancel your pastor. Yet the problem is that the pastor isn't saying the things that they should be saying in spite of the fact that they have essentially a wall around them that protects them. Because, I mean, again, they can get away with it. The problem is then the laity might, dispose of the pastor for, going off on feminism and other stuff. But yeah, Joel Webben, is willing to go down and, and take up the sword and fight Goliath. And that's why he's the hero. He's the champion that's willing to represent the people.
He's the best we got. He said something like that people took the wrong way. But he was actually saying it as a lament.
Yeah, I mean, another example of feminists not being able to take a joke.
But I actually said Andrew Torba. I think Andrew Torba navigated the election question very well. He is I would say a larger audience than Joel Webben, even though Joel Webben's skyrocketed in the last year. So I actually think that's my opinion. I think Joel Webben Teacher of the Year, and
Yeah,
then Andrew Torba Church Hero, because I think he's done very well. He has maintained Gab as a counterbalance to Elon Musk, which has proven to be very necessary at the end of 2024. But that competition, that the threat of Gab being a free speech platform was always good for Twitter or Twitter X. And that's why I think Andrew Torba gets it. He navigated the Trump question right. He has been pretty excellent in using his influence to build institutions and stuff like that. So I think Andrew Torba definitely deserves Church Hero. And, Joel Webben got his flowers for largely the same thing. Because, best teacher and worst teacher theoretically is supposed to be pastor awards. And then Church Villain. This one's a hard one. I think I know who it should be.
I mean, I went with Doug Wilson because this is a complete villain arc of, you helped raise these people up and then you're basically knifing them in the back. And he spent his entire 2024 doing this, where he, went after Joel Webben on the Zoom call. Then you're burning your bridges, which you physically, you didn't, it wasn't just a metaphor. You actually, physically burned the bridge as a show of force that, hey, we're burning bridges with Joel Webben, with Andrew Isker, with CJ Angle, with the Ogden guys, even though you wined and dined them after like an 11-hour drive or whatever.
That was on the 21st.
And then you still turn around and crap on them
5 days later.
So, there's a lot to be said about hospitality in the Bible and in Eastern culture, Middle Eastern culture. And yeah, this is a complete villain arc. And at a time of national revival too, you basically spat on the very people that were most likely to be the most fertile soil for revival because of your pride, your ego, and access to conservative media like Andrew Klavan, National Conservatism, NatCon, and Daily Wire, and Blaze Media.
So the Doug Wilson one's a hot take, but here's why I'm not convinced that Doug Wilson is a false teacher, even though I think he's wrong on a lot of things.
Well, I said villain, not false teacher, though.
I know, but I think villain should be a false teacher. That's, to me, how you judge the villain part, the villainy. So I had 4 nominees for this. I had Ed Stetzer, Russell Moore, Brent Leatherwood, and Preston Sprinkle. All 4 of these men have been quite villainous throughout 2024. And I think, given that it was an election year, I think Russell Moore kind of takes the cake. This guy led the charge in advocating for Haitians to invade Ohio. He, in the name of Christ, he gave a lot of airtime to Evangelicals for Harris and their talking points. So he did a lot in 2024 to attack the church in terms of representing the liberal evangelical, or trying to bolster the liberal evangelicals as a voting bloc. Russell Moore was the big bad, and he got defeated in the 2024 election. So I see that as a proxy for Russell Moore's influence on the church as well. So I think Russell Moore was the villain of 2024 and was defeated. And this is a guy who's always kind of been the bridesmaid, never the bride. He's always been that chick Hicks and Cars, and never
Lightning McQueen.
No, not Lightning McQueen. Never the King, whose name I forget. He had a name in the movie, but he was known as the King. He's always the green car, never the blue car. And that's who Russell Moore has been. He's consistent in his villainy, but I think this year he did go above and beyond. He finally gets that villainous status. And I don't think it's Doug Wilson yet, because Doug Wilson's just wrong and doubles down on the same issue. But what is Russell Moore right about?
No, absolutely nothing.
So yeah, Doug hosted the. This is a good question. Doug hosted the Ogden crew on December 21st. They drove up to Moscow, Idaho, to sit down with him and talk to him. He trashed him 5 days later.
Yeah, so
So
yeah, they actually drove to meet in person and like have a sit down.
So yeah, that goodwill lasted 5 days. And I'm not even sure if Christmas counts as Doug Wilson's fuming over meme videos on Christmas. So I do believe that this is Russell Moore. Please get me on this next one. I'm curious to what you have as best church.
This one I went Refuge Church in Ogden, Utah. I thought this was their year, very ascendant in terms of the culture. Their podcast, I thought the King's Hall, is an interesting and good podcast. I actually listened to a recent one that they dropped, and obviously they're able to actually like brand Christianity as something that appeals to the that young white male that's coming into revival. They're they do the workout, and I guess that's a church that they have like a weird back room that's a church that they can do their workouts in with all the weightlifting equipment. So
Their church is beautiful, by the way.
yeah, they actually have a nice facility.
It's very nice. I mean, I don't think Redeemed Zoomer might not like it because he's all about stone masonry and not carpentry, but it's a nice church building. I have a more obscure church. This is Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Wichita, Kansas. And this is the church that decided to take in Ryan Turnipseed after one church decided to excommunicate him. They decided to override that excommunication and take him in. And that is a Lutheran Church Missouri Synod intra-denominational battle. So I've had them nominated for several months now, and I didn't have another church on the list. So what are your thoughts on that nomination? Do you think it stacks up with your own?
I think because fun fact, I've actually met Turnipseed, and I know there were several LCMS churches that did denounce the excommunication of Turnipseed. So I mean, that one obviously is the one that took him in, so they deserve a lot of credit. And obviously, they're taking the arrows from their denomination. But I will say they're not unique in that, because there were others that did take him, that would have taken him in.
Okay, I mean, I think that's a fair argument that what that church did, and I don't know what church. Off the top of my head, I don't know what church. I think it was no, not. I don't know who it was that excommunicated him falsely, but it was so egregious to excommunicate someone for having right-wing views that a bunch of churches, maybe not super conservative, because the LCMS is not that conservative, a bunch of churches were appalled by that abuse of ecclesiastical authority. So you're saying it was so bad, and therefore Doug Wilson, or not Doug Wilson, the Ogden crew should get it. I think you got a fair argument there. So I'll grant that. There you go, showing up on the board here. You've had me convinced. Worst church. This one was a patron poll, so let me pull up the results. Worst church of the year. Okay, well, that's not helpful. We have a tie. We have a three-way tie between Gateway Church, Trinity Bible Church, and Emmanuel Church.
So Emmanuel Church, that's the Brent Leatherwood's church, for those that don't
No,
know.
no,
That's not.
that's Russell Moore's
Oh,
church.
that's Russell Moore's. Okay.
And Gavin Ortland's church, and Sam Alberry's church, and
Just
Barnabas Piper's church.
They're just all in Nashville.
Yes. Trinity Bible Church, Steve Lawson's church, and then Robert Morris's Gateway Church.
So I generally do the worst church is like the bad church that has a total collapse in the year. And this one I did choose Gateway Church just because it completely collapsed as a church while also being a bad church. I mean, an honorable mention I did have was IHOP KC, but That's
Okay,
already that's
so
in clowns. That's in clown.
having a tie is not super helpful. I had trouble getting the patrons to vote this year because these polls did not go out on the email list that I send out in the newsletter because the paywall articles did not get captured by the RSS feed for the email list. So that's been very difficult for me to, to get out the vote effort here to the patrons. So we had a three-way tie with these three churches. Gateway Church is a very strong case because of what you mentioned. I feel like Steve Lawson should have won for worst teacher, and therefore this church wins for worst church. But you're right that Gateway Church had a monumental collapse that I think deserved it. Let me bring up the question about McLean Bible Church. So for the stuff in the documentary, a lot of that happened in 2021, and they won the award for
They
worst
did
church
win.
in
They did
that
win at the
year.
time.
They won at the time for when that stuff happened. This documentary is exposing things that happened in the years past that we gave them worst church for because we covered it at the time. That'd be like double jeopardy, right? But not that they aren't deserving of the worst church even this year, but it's a tough year. There are a lot of nominees this year. James River Church with their sword swallowing, pole dancing routine.
Monster trucks, all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's when they're being less gay. But I think you're right, Gateway Church. If you had Gateway, I'll let you be the deciding vote. Gateway Church will get worst church of 2024. So, most overrated. This is an easy one.
This one was easy.
Who you got?
This one has to be Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark. It's unanimous.
It's women's basketball. It's not really a real sport. You're not even like a top 1,000 basketball player in the country if you actually included men in that list. So, and the fact that we had to hear all about her and how she's like this conservative proxy, because really it's just, I won't say it's like a white racial proxy against a league that's like anti-white. And
yeah, people assume
like
that because she was white and from Iowa, she was not a liberal. Like, that is some white privilege there.
And yeah, she was just like the others, like all the others in the league, except slightly more talented because she Steph Curry's her jump shot.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen clips of, and she flops on the court, and it's like, how do people like her? She's not likable. She's not good looking. Like, Angel Reese is like, let me sexualize myself and then complain about being sexualized. I mean, Caitlin Clark can't do that. She's the worst dressed out of all the rookies in her class that were not like overtly lesbian. She was the worst dressed out of all the seemingly straight women in her class. So I don't get it.
Like we made her an icon for something that she wasn't.
Dan Crenshaw has been bad for years, though. Like, I don't think he's overrated. I think we kind of understand him to be what he is. Women's combat sports should be banned completely. And okay, that's a hot take. I mean, I can't say I disagree. Like, I don't. I've seen $1 Million Baby, but other than that, what's the appeal? And I've seen a lot of. I remember Ronda Rousey back in the day when she was entertaining. But I don't know. Yeah, can't say I'm behind that. I'm not going to sign my daughters up to be UFC fighters. That's not happening. So, okay, Caitlin Clark. I think we're in pretty good agreement on that. Most underrated.
This one I went with Contra Mundum with CJ Angle and Andrew Isker. As far as like who are our guys that are going to be like, the thought leaders going forward, that's where I think CJ Angle really comes in. But him and Isker are a great pair because one brings like the nerdy intellectual style while Isker's kind of like the fire brand that counterbalances. So it does provide a lot of good entertainment that's very politically insightful once a week. So it's very friendly. But yeah, I would say that they're underrated because they're rising stars on in our space, and they have the ability to reach audiences that might not be conventionally Christian, but they that fertile ground.
Yeah, I didn't have anything for this, so yeah, unless someone in the chat has something for underrated, yeah, I'll give the Contra Mundum. All right, underreported. I think you have. I think we have the same one.
What? Tunnels?
Jewish tunnels in New York. That is the most underreported story of 2024.
I mean, my other option was the Ukraine war.
I was going to say Shepherds for Sale, the book. It should have gotten more report. It was not. Christian media tried to bury that book and bury the stories that it uncovered. But Jewish tunnels in New York, I'm like, that is clearly the most underreported story.
Yeah, why is there
why are there tunnels in New York City?
Why is there
why is there a mattress?
Mattress? I like how Ard McIntyre was just like, we have, it was very hectic last year. We had tunnels. It's like we thought it was insane last year when there's tunnels in the cities, and this year's kind of opening up with violent terrorism caused by immigrants or their descendants.
Yeah, I guess my part is I forgot that this was 2024.
Yeah, it was January.
Yeah, I thought it was earlier than that. Wow. But yeah, that definitely takes the cake.
I thought I was just lobbing some fire.
I
thought I was coming in with a banger.
When you hyped it up, when you hyped up your underreported, I'm like, oh, that's what you're going for, and you're right. So I think you had this first. Overreported. This one was also easy.
Who'd you have?
Women's basketball.
Oh, well.
This went from something that nobody watched or cared about to a few people watching cared about. And all of a sudden, it's being so overreported.
Poor quality basketball.
Yeah, the conservative sports bro world went all over it. I mean, Jason Whitlock's come to regret the Caitlin Clark hype, or if you want to be cynical about these people, they're trying to monetize that. I don't think Jason Whitlock's this way, but these people like, oh, she turned on us. It's like, she was never on our side, bro.
Yeah, they're feigning it so that they can monetize the outrage.
Yeah, so they can have more content. So
now that's a good one. Now I see the super chat here for $9.99. Stonechoir deserves an award. They forced unpopular biblical topics into the world, into mainstream discussion. Many wolves were exposed. So this is actually where I put Stonechoir being overreported, because this is the definition of a Streisand effect, where a lot of these people that didn't like Stonechoir wanted to basically report on Stonechoir or attack other people, attack Stonechoir via proxy war against whether Joel Webbin or someone else. And this is why I would say that they're overreported, is because they're not as large as a lot of people think they are. And
it might be because they don't come out with they're not like a daily podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know how often they come out with episodes, but
they were completely Streisand effect, and a lot of people that probably had never heard of them and didn't even know who they were or whichever are now, a lot of people, they checked them out. Maybe they liked some things that maybe they didn't. And obviously they did, force a lot of uncomfortable topics into the mainstream.
Yeah.
So I picked them for most overreported, because it's either the Wilson or White or whoever types either don't want people watching it and, they're creating a Streisand effect inadvertently, or they're intentionally villainizing Stonechoir so that they can link anyone they're against as part of Stonechoir, which is kind of the Nick Fuentes strategy of why Nick Fuentes is, not in a jail cell for talking about riding the Capitol on January 6th, where he exists because he's good for business of, anti-Semitism incorporated. And that's, that'd be the most cynical strategy of why, they're going after Stonechoir.
I don't think this is a nominee on the floor, White Evangelicals for Harris, or Evangelicals for Harris in general. I don't think they were overreported. They tried to astroturf themselves into existence, but again, thanks to people like me, like Woke Preacher Clips, and a few others, we basically gut them from the beginning, and they had no real credibility to get off the ground. So I don't think that they were overreported. They tried to be a thing. They had a lot of backing. They had a lot of people from Christianity Today back them, but I don't think that they were overreported. The David Plock that actually got a lot more attention than people think. Just kind of my knowledge on behind the scenes and stuff like that. The fact that liberal Christian media reported on that documentary, it got a lot more attention than you might think. I don't know how to quantify it, but it didn't get buried and forgotten about. It made a splash. And then Yellow Moth says Stone Choir is so boring. They're low energy and dour. I mean, the joke goes that they are Lutheran NPR is the joke. And is it overreported? I think a lot of people have made more about Stone Choir than was necessary. And I don't know whether it's the Stone Choir people or whether it's all the other people, because I'm not listening to 2.5 hour podcast just for research purposes, unless my patrons want me to, because then sure, by all means. But no one has ever requested on my discernment request form Stone Choir. No one. I don't know how many people listen to them, but I imagine it's around 1,000 people an episode. I don't know. How is Taylor Swift being overreported? She won last year in 2023 for being overrated.
I mean, yeah, the Taylor Swift, Kelsey.
She was less of a phenomenon this year.
Yeah, that was a bigger deal in the 2023 season than 2024.
So I think it goes back to women's basketball. Caitlin Clark overreported, women's basketball overreported.
The entire sport shouldn't even have any reporting.
Yes. So I should not know anything about this. Stone Choir is just too much blackpilling, really. Huh. I don't know whether they're optimistic or pessimistic. I don't know. I have a cordial relationship with Treble Woe. I've never really interacted meaningfully with Corey Mahler. I know he's posted some cringe things. Fannie Willis, that's the attorney in Georgia, right?
No, I believe so.
Was that overreported? I don't know. How about biggest surprise?
Wow.
This one was tough. I came up with something very recently for this award.
I'm generally not one to get surprised by a lot, but I will say I was surprised that I said Steve Lawson's mistress, because when we heard about the Steve Lawson scandal, I'm just like, okay, it's probably like a middle-aged, like 40-plus-year-old woman who's probably divorced. And I'm just like, yeah, book it. 20 to 30 years younger than Steve Lawson, because he's 72. No, it's someone like our age, a girl that I would probably swipe right on. And she went with the sugar daddy that's at the time would have been in his late 60s. So to me, that seems like the biggest surprise, is that
she's attractive.
Well, that and the fact that it was a Bill Belichick situation. It wasn't just like, going after like a 40.
It wasn't like whatever Michael Brown might have going on.
It wasn't like some 45-year-old like divorced woman that, he was getting a little too close with, and, things happened. It was
Bill Belichick,
someone our age in a Bill Belichick situation with the 72-year-old pastor. So to me, that's the biggest surprise of the year. And, there's a lot of red pill talking points of how does a guy like me compete with a guy that has a net worth in the millions when I'm still on my path
if Tom Brady's wife can cheat, so can that's the red pill talking point I've heard most in terms of Bill Belichick comparisons. But you definitely beat out whatever I had. I had Clint Presley. I think he, as a Southern Baptist president, he's been surprisingly not bad. I'm not going to say he's a good one. A little too early for that, but he is not. He's been surprisingly quiet and amenable to the conservative shift in the culture. This guy is not nearly as bad as Bart Barber was, or Ed Litton, or J.D. Greer. So that is a shock. So Your thoughts on that one? I think that gets
I
an
mean,
honorable mention. I think Steve Lawson's mistress being attractive or being like a Bill
yeah,
Belichick situation.
yeah, being like in her 20s and like younger than us, and someone that's attractive, reasonably attractive, and like that whole situation.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm gonna say this. I don't think we're quite there yet, but
Keep in mind, a lot of
on
that
social
happened.
media, yes. But
A lot of that
2023,
happened because of October 7th. So it is kind of it's a continuation from a 2023 trend.
I mean, that started in like late 2022
with Kanye.
No, I don't think.
Well,
I mean,
no, but
maybe
that was
Kanye
when
had something to do with it, but at some point, like the meme warfare was very effective. But a lot of us were noticing before October 7. So I think you got me there. Biggest disappointment. This one I have Doug Wilson.
Okay, I mean you beat out me. I had Steve Lawson, but
I had some nominations that were perhaps less serious, and then Steve Dace was another disappointment. Yeah, I don't know what happened to him being an effective voice in the culture, but he's not it anymore. My opinion. He went pretty downhill this year. And then Beverly Hills Cop Axel Foley as a sequel to Beverly Hills Cop 3. That was a huge disappointment. I have like a short list of movies that I'm excited to see in 2025, for instance. But in 2024, this Beverly Hills Cop sequel was like one of the few movies I'm like, hey, I'm looking forward to this. I mean, obviously Dune Part 2 was one of those movies, and then I forget what the other movies on that list were, but yeah, that was a complete disappointment. Should not have been made. Hopefully Happy Gilmore 2 will be better. But yeah, I think Doug Wilson takes the cake. Yellow Moth is right. He went downhill with the sinking ship of dispensationalism. Yeah. Because he doesn't know history, particularly European history, and it shows. So that's biggest disappointment. Grifter of the year. This was another poll question. So let me pull up the results.
So I thought this one would be pretty obvious.
Apparently less so. I think your nomination was the winner. Oh, we had a comeback. So this was a tight race between Haley Welch, the Hawk Tour girl, and then Patrick Bet-David. And they are tied.
Now I would
Haley Welch came back and tied it.
If I would be the tiebreaker, I would say Hawk Tua is the biggest scammer of considering her scam was this year and Patrick Bet-David's scams are more like 10 years in the past because that's how he made his money. That's how he also grew his channel into a big platform is because he would use his company events and hire like an outside speaker like a Jordan Peterson. And then he's basically, double dipping, using his corporation to launch his YouTube channel. And that's how he grew his brand. But as far as whose scam was this year, that would definitely be Hawk Tua, which also speaks to our culture, being very debased.
Why are you buying meme coins of
Ethots?
Yeah, why are you buying Ethot meme coins? Which was an obvious pump and dump scheme. All meme coins are a pump and dump scheme. Like when have they not been? Even the Doge has been pump and dump. So yeah, if you want to be the tie-breaking vote, then Hawk Tour Girl can get it with second place going to Patrick Bet-David.
Because Patrick Bet-David is bad, and obviously he's like, you should be willing to work 70 hours a week. Yeah, you made your money scamming people through multi-level marketing. But a lot of your scams were, that's 10 years in the past. That's how you made your money to even where you could have a major podcast.
Hey, it is work ethic.
And, credit to Jason Whitlock. His radar went off on that one before a lot of people even knew who this guy was.
So, and yeah, let's go on to biggest bum. This one was hard for me. I have a lot of good bum nominations. I have Nick Rekieta, whose his YouTube channel fell off and he got arrested for drugs and endangering children with drugs, and he became a degenerate swinger. Jack Black.
Oh, come on. That's low hanging fruit. That's like, a lot of people would say he never had a heyday to even become a bum.
School of Rock.
Okay.
And he was good in that Saving Silverman movie. Will Ferrell. He's like anti-funny now.
But he's been washed up for years.
He has, but he's like anti-funny. He was like the only person that was not remotely funny at the roast of Tom Brady. Like, even female comedians were more funny than he was. And then Aaron Rodgers, quarterback, New York Jets.
This one I actually did have on my list.
So Aaron Rodgers deserves to be bum of. He deserves a bum of the year nomination. So you got someone else.
I have,
but let me just say, Aaron Rodgers, quarterback, New York Jets, doesn't want to put in the work to be a quarterback at the age of 40, and it showed on the football field. Bum of the year is a worthy title for him.
However, have we considered Mark Robinson for bum of the year for running a bad campaign for North Carolina governor? He should have dropped out. He did not put in the hard work. He was not very articulate on the campaign trail. And he also had like a porno scandal of like making comments on the comment sections of Pornhub videos or something with the hand. I don't know. I don't even know if I want to know. We didn't really cover it at the time, but that was kind of the gist of the scandal of, he used the same account name for the hub as he did on other platforms and got caught or whatever. And he underperformed Trump by 15 points and proceeded to tank Dan Bishop's campaign for North Carolina Attorney General. So he really tanked the Republicans in North Carolina, except for Donald Trump, of course. And he should have won that race, but he didn't. He should have been able to ride the coattails of Donald Trump, but couldn't.
He had such a resounding primary victory, too, that he should have won. That is a very strong nomination. But does it beat Aaron Rodgers? That is a quick question.
In terms of impact, I would say yes. I know AD Robles is somewhere saying, no, it's got to be Aaron Rodgers because, the Jets. But the Jets are the Jets.
Okay, first of all,
this is what the Jets do.
Carrie Lake can't be a bum of the year because she was never good. She was damaged goods. Here's the thing. Bum of the year should represent someone who was good that is no longer good. And would you agree that is Mark Robinson?
Yeah, he was someone that was viewed as very promising. And obviously, he kind of like rode the base black, pastor to politician, but he won a statewide race and then proceeded to completely crap out for a governor race.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. Carrie Lake's not a bum. She's been bad ever since she lost her governor's race. She's been bad. But then again, you could say that about Jack Black and Will Ferrell. Aaron Rodgers, I kind of think that he tore his Achilles because he was not in shape. That was kind of my impression when he did that on that Monday night a few years ago. And, the third snap of the game, he tore his Achilles. I thought that was because he didn't practice hard. And he, so the minute that he tries to do something, it didn't go well.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But there was still that expectation that this year would be different for the New York Jets. But you are right that Mark Robinson had so much potential to be a Christian nationalist leader in North Carolina and absolutely tanked. Could not use the crisis of the hurricane to his advantage enough. Hey,
by then
sports.
it was already, that ship was already in the water. It was underwater, like North Carolina when by the time the hurricane. So
And he should have just owned it and said, "I've repented from that," because that
I
guy
think he should have
had.
dropped out of the race. But I mean, again,
No, it was too late to drop out of the
I
race.
think it
But
came out like a couple days before to like press him to drop, and
it was an
he didn't.
October, September surprise. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark Robinson, bum of the year.
And again, he was also unironically
We were
invited
hyping
to.
him.
Yeah,
Earlier in
and
the
he
year.
was a speaker at Whitlock's conference, one that probably didn't get enough, like one that was probably overlooked for the whole Glenn Beck saga.
Yeah, that's right. He was. Player hater of the year.
I mean, this one's obviously James White.
Oh, that's better than what I had. But speaking of James White, Todd Erzin. I had Todd Erzin from the Steve Dace show. That dude's a player hater. He just hates Anons, has 4 lines, and is just is one of the reasons why the Steve Dace show is unwatchable at this point, because he is unwatchable. So those are my thoughts on that. Curtis Chang, I also had. He hated the fact that the PCA canceled David French from speaking, I think is the lines of when I nominated him. I can't always remember why I nominate people. But Curtis Chang, I wrote down earlier in the year, Todd Erzin, but I think James White you are absolutely right. He is the player hater of the year. It is so obvious.
Like, yeah, doing podcast on like various Anon comments. Like I went after the gays I guess yesterday, because in light of the whole New Year's kiss, how the ball drops and you're seeing 2 ball fondlers kiss on TV, and and there's another tweet where I posted something about tolerance of gays was like the first step on the slippery slope, not them wanting gay marriage. And I see all these like gay anons underneath my thing, and I didn't go on a 2-hour podcast to rant about all the dangers of these anons that they're insulting me by calling me gay, even though they don't think being gay is wrong, which make sense. But yeah, I didn't go on a 2-hour podcast about it.
Did Aaron Rodgers do DMT? Yes. I'm pretty sure he's done DMT before. Yeah. He also did darkness retreats. And it shows on the football field that he did this stuff.
And of course, drugs and soft tissue injuries.
Yeah, they go together.
There is a trend there.
Let's see. So James White, player hater of the year. That is so obvious. How did I not think of that? Because I guess I also try to avoid recency bias. Best actor.
This was the one I did not have anything for.
I had John Cena, because if he's in something, I kind of want to see it. Like, I don't know if you've seen the meme of like the 4 horsemen of this movie's, I don't want to see this movie, or this movie's going to suck. Which and as like Dwayne Johnson, probably also Zendaya should be on that. Dwayne Johnson, Jack Black, and Kevin Hart are typically on it. Like the 4 horsemen of this movie's going to suck and I don't want to see it. And John Cena's on the actual opposite of that. He's on the 4 horsemen of, I'm going to see this movie and it's not going to take it too seriously. So that's what I have. I'm interested in best actor nominations on the floor. Speaking of DMT, are you familiar with the What If Alt Hist and his super weird DMT videos? Yeah, I wrote an article on this. Because he's not even his story's not relevant to the evangelical world, so to speak, and I didn't want to do a video on that because it's not monetizable. Just kidding. Because he was joking about how I did this for clicks and stuff like that, and clicks and advertisements and stuff like that, even though the content he did was not monetizable on YouTube. You can't make up nonsense about what your mommy did to you and monetize that. You cannot monetize that on YouTube. That they will flag you very quickly for that. But yeah, not a fan. I don't think Christians should listen to What If Alt Hist or Rudyard Lynch anymore. He's proven himself to be a bad actor. And I unsubscribed from him like before this happened. But yeah. Those are my thoughts on that. Have you thought of a best actor yet?
Nah, this one I just legitimately drew a blank on.
I mean,
I
Emily
had one for
Blunt.
worst, but
Emily
not for
Blunt
best.
is another worthy consideration. I don't.
I mean,
I didn't say not good.
we could go with Hulk Hogan for MAGA Mania.
He's not an actor though.
Well, no, but he's an entertainer.
All right, I'm gonna go with John Cena because there were some movies that he was in, and I enjoy them. They're not super. They're not. This is cinema, but they're enjoyable enough despite the lack of seriousness. So he's in a movie. I'm intrigued by it because he's actually genuinely funny, even though he bends over for the Chinese. Just saying. I'm going to throw that out there. So this brings us to worst actor.
So this one I put Nick Fuentes down for. I do think he's a bad actor. He is also really tainted his own image, because when you play the role of contrarian, eventually, if you do it for long enough, you'll have taken every single side on every single issue, and that's kind of what Fuentes did in 2024 by, basically saying I'm for Kamala Harris instead of Trump, and then after the election he flips back to being pro-Trump, even though he was on record like backing Kamala, supporting Kamala, Kamala's brat. And he's the kind of guy that he's burned 109 bridges, but it's not his fault. And that's Nick Fuentes. And that's in addition to certain scandals of him being gay with or not with Destiny, who even knows, and the whole him being a federal agent, who even knows.
I'm gonna tell you, I don't want to know if he's gay with Destiny or not.
I'm not watching the video.
I'm not watching it.
That's like the Congress sex tape. It's just like, be the guy that's just like, I watched that 4 times. Well,
nope, not me.
I'll take your word for it. I'll take the butcher's word for it. Okay.
Daddy's Home 2, a classic. I've never seen Daddy's Home 2 or Daddy's Home 1.
No, it's not really that good, but
Fuentes never supported Kamala. I mean,
he kind of inadvertently did.
He signaled in favor, like he went along with the astroturfing. I think that is a very clear way to put it. He was giving the astroturfing of Kamala Harris a lot of credence when it was just fabricated. Everyone knew, and apparently Kamala Harris's internal polls never had her winning. Everyone knew she was going to lose. And it maybe for a moment felt like maybe she could win. Just like in early September or whenever that was, it felt like maybe for a moment in 2012 that Mitt Romney could win. Or John McCain could win. You had brief moments like that in the presidential election, then they get railroaded, or they just get steamrolled. Different locomotive reference. So worst actor. I had Jack Black nominated, but Zendaya. You were an absolute drain on Dune Part 2, and what you did was a crime to cinema.
I mean, the fact is she's she's Zendaya.
She keeps getting roles. How?
It's Zendaya, if you know what I'm saying.
Like, she's not attractive, and she can't act. She is the worst Mary Jane that's ever existed. And she's the worst Shawnee that's ever existed. She is absolutely the worst actress of 2024.
Yeah, and she is continuing.
That was a massive poop performance as Shawnee in Dune Part 2.
And she's continuing to be astroturfed as like someone that's supposed to be like this amazing actress, even though she's just a token hire.
Did you see that? I'm sure you did. So there's a tennis movie. So when I say did you see, I'm talking to the audience. Do you see that movie, the trailer, where she's a tennis star that has a menage a trois with 2 dudes? It's like, no way is that believable. First of all, it wasn't believable when Blake Lively did a movie like that, which I saw the beginning of, and I'm like, this is terrible. I do not want to watch this. It's not believable from the premise that two guys would share one girl.
Well,
but that girl being Zendaya, no, not believable. Bad acting. I mean, maybe they were better actors, but either way, I think Zendaya's worst actress because you're an entire drain on Dune Part 2. And it is, if it weren't for her character, I would be so comfortable saying that this is the movie of the year.
Yeah.
But her character ruins or is a major drain on the movie. It doesn't ruin the movie, but it is such a glaring flaw in an otherwise very excellent film. So I got to give it to Zendaya because Dune Part 1, I just come away. I can watch Dune Part 1 and probably like it better than Dune Part 2. I don't think Dune Part 2 is gonna. In my head, Dune Part 1 was better.
Yeah, I mean that's.
So, and it's because of Zendaya. Primary reason. Celebrity, athlete, musician, entrepreneur. Do you have anything for any of these categories?
So entrepreneur, I did still have Elon Musk, and I understand there's a lot of recent controversy, but as far as the year of 2024, he was the most impactful entrepreneur out there, and obviously him buying Twitter did have a sizable effect on Donald Trump's electoral chances.
This is an award of magnitude, not direction. So Elon Musk is definitely entrepreneur of the year. Do you have an athlete of the year or anything like that?
So I did have Harrison Butler down.
Butker.
Sorry, my vision.
He's not having a good season.
He is not. So that I know that. Yeah. So that might disqualify him from that.
I do believe that disqualifies him, and he's a kicker. What's next? You're going to have Pat McAfee in the Hall of Fame?
Well, I had him down because he also took the stand for a lot of like Christian issues. He's kind of been that kind of guy, like our guy, even though he's Catholic. But so he did stand firm in faith issues, and he has taken some heat for it. That's initially why I had him written down. He did kick the winning field goal in the Super Bowl, just for the record.
Yeah.
Even though he hasn't been
he saved the dude's life too, apparently, in practice.
So he hasn't quite been a factor in the 2024 season, but he has been a good character off the field.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's really athlete of the year, though. But great dude. Great dude. No complaints about that. I'm going to move on to the next category.
Unless you wanted to argue Shohei Ohtani should finally get the love he deserves.
Well, Los Angeles is going to be, loving him for quite
a long
time because his contract's deferred, so they can be in win now mode, and he's making like minimum, which is kind of insane. That he's going to be paid for like 20 years or something like that. Absolutely insane that the MLB is kind of allowing teams to just put off their debt. But if it wins now, which they have won now, it's worth it to a fan base. I'm going to move on to the next one. Best politician. I think Thomas Massey should get this again.
I mean,
John Jones in his return. And the UFC. See, if UFC was a less expensive hobby, I could get into it. Or, Stream East or whatever. But I don't know. It's hard to give that to a UFC fighter because they don't fight too many times a year. Jake Paul, anyone? Athlete of the year? But yeah, going back to politician, I think Thomas Massey, again, kind of brought it in 2024. He won this award in 2023, and I see no reason to take it from him in 2024.
Yeah, I had Donald Trump, but yeah, I can see the argument.
He's not in office, and that's why.
Yeah, but he did have the major interview where he talked about everyone having an APAC handler. That was Thomas Massey.
That was Thomas Massey.
Now, I wish he would expound on that. And obviously,
Dusty Devers is also mentioned in my nominations, but I do believe that this goes to Massey because,
there's a larger impact.
In Congress is much higher than being in a state senator. It's major leagues versus minor leagues. No offense to Dusty Devers, but I'm sure he knows this. So I think Thomas Massey has not lost it. You said Donald Trump, but he's not technically as in office. But I understand, but I think there's another award or two that Donald Trump would qualify for. So he will get his flowers. Let's see. Novak Djokovic won the gold medal in tennis. He's Eastern Orthodox, but proclaimed Christ at an anti-Christ event.
I mean, I think
he also took a strong stand on a certain jab in 2021.
I think he won.
Didn't he win the Grand Slam?
Yes.
I don't know if that was this year though, or in 2024 though.
No, that was like 2022. He won it, but
I just don't like tennis. I'll be real. But yeah, that's a good pool there because I am vaguely aware of some of the stuff. Worst politician.
So this one, I went with Senator Katie Britt out of Alabama. She did the State of the Union rebuttal to Joe Biden, and this is the most abhorrent thing I've ever watched. I had to turn it off because of how cringe it was. This is like the most cringe thing of the year. She does it from her kitchen, of like talking about how
kitchen.
I don't even know, and it's just so disingenuous. Like, you had the easy opportunity to talk about how all the policies of Biden have messed up. And, the GOP is trying to win back suburban women. And they put this fake woman that's only in there because she's remotely attractive. And
remotely?
For a senator, yes. And you have to be above the age of, 30?
30.
Wow. That sounds awful. But, yeah. Like, they put this
middle-aged woman... Okay.
That is only there because she's remotely attractive. She's eye candy. It's kind of like...
To the boomers who watch Fox News.
Yeah. And that's why she's in the Senate. And she's giving the rebuttal to Joe Biden's State of the Union, this thing that like 100 million people watch. And she just delivers the biggest heap of cringe of the year on a huge blown opportunity for the Republican Party.
I forgot about this.
You want to forget about it.
I had Mike Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Johnson has delivered no wins except for, his top priority, which he announced on day one. Like, you knew on day one of him taking the speakership that his priority was a foreign country.
And he's done nothing to stop the Biden administration from funding Ukraine. So I don't know. It's a tough call. There's definitely a fantastic moment of cringe from Katie Britt, but is one night worth the whole year of Mike Johnson being speaker?
Yeah, I mean, in Johnson's defense, he's in a very precarious situation as far as what you have at your disposal. You don't have a mandate. You have a very slim majority in the House, and you got a bunch of rhinos that will side with the other side to get anything wicked passing. The problem is you can't navigate the slim majority you do have into even a slight victory. You can't even win on like one little issue to say, hey, look, we had 10 things we could get done. We got done 1 out of 10, and we'll get, the other item on the next bill. And then, we'll compound these into getting all 10 items, but over the course of a slower
There is something to say that Mike Johnson does not have the capability of delivering real wins because of, there's enough there's like 20 Republicans in Congress that will just side with the Democrats on any major issue. But Katie Britt definitely, she's a senator and she's not going to be rising in the ranks probably after this one. I think, okay. I'll grant Katie Britt for the State of the Union response. Are there any good Republican women? Remember how Gnome shot her dog? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you got Nancy Mace, who's been a total ethot.
Total ethot.
I mean, Lauren Boebert's kind of white trash, but and Luna was literally a Sports Illustrated model or something like that.
Who?
Florida, the Florida,
Oh.
Anna Paulina Luna.
Did she win?
I believe she did.
Yeah, I don't pay attention to Congress stuff because nothing important really happens in Congress, unfortunately. At least not in a good way. Activist of the Year.
This one, I put the Center for Baptist Leadership as far as their inaugural, I guess, impact on the Southern Baptist Convention. So they were able to they were able to arrive on the scene and kind of make an impact. And obviously William Wolf and his star is kind of rising in terms of the SBC. So I think that's a very positive development.
I don't know, like how much of the SBC is really under the influence, is really in that camp. Maybe 10% of the messengers who show up.
Well, I mean, they kind of did tag team it with Megan Basham because she had a well-received presentation at the SBC.
Now, I don't know if you want to call Megan Basham an activist or not.
No, but the Center for Baptist Leadership. I think they had like a thing. It was their lunch or whatever that Megan Basham spoke at that was well received.
Yes, you're not wrong. I'm just wondering how much of an impact they had in the Southern Baptist Convention because they did more than the Conservative Baptist Network did, but the CBN candidate did get more votes than the CBL candidate. It's a tough choice, and I don't know who to give this award to at all. Is there anyone in the presidential race that stands out for their activism goes? And
I mean, apart from saying like Elon Musk and his financiering,
Antonio Brown, activism.
So, I mean, as far as activists goes,
I don't think they've earned it. I'll just be real, and I'm getting from the chat that not really. They don't have the clout, or they didn't have the most solid plan. I mean, they just started out. I'm willing to give them more time. Daniel Penny. Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I will say I didn't actually have Daniel Penny on the list. I'd be willing to give it to him because he kind of has stood as an icon or a hero of sorts, and kind of a representation of what a chivalrous high trust society would look like, is you would be able to suppress the bad elements.
Ooh, that's good. Daniel Penny. Good job, chat. Let's roll. Moving on, LARPer of the Year.
So this one has to go.
This one's a little hard.
This one is easy for me. The Moscow Mood is the LARP of the year.
Oh, you see, I had Gabe Wrench and Toby Sumter.
So we're on the same page.
So which one is it?
I think it's the Moscow Mood. It turned into a LARP.
Okay.
So, this fake, masculine, patriarchal, like we're gonna actually like do something Christianity, and it's just blowing smoke. It's just
we're sycophants for Doug Wilson.
Yeah, it's just a personality brand.
Okay, so let me reread the award because it's LARP parentheses ER. So you could say something is a LARP, or you could say a person is a LARPer. You are absolutely right in combining my two nominations for the Moscow Mood. That is definitely the LARP of the year, hands down.
Because keep in mind, they basically went after White Boy Summer, which was an actual. I mean, if you want to actually put activist on there, White Boy Summer is an activist movement, which basically helped Trump win the election because of the whole Haitian memes, that the Haitian Ohio memes that Trump.
I do have something for the White Boy Summer crowd. I got something for you.
And the fact that a non named Captain Dreamer was the guy that broke that story So yeah, the white boy energy that helped change an election that they were calling like white soy summer or white soy bummer or whatever.
Okay, so so LARP of the year is Moscow Mood. I think that's absolutely right. Dead on balls accurate. Who's your hack of the year?
This one has to be Tobias Riemenschneider.
Oh, I had Neil Shenby.
And keep in mind, I had Neil as the worst teacher because he's the James Lindsay of the church. He's the guy because even though James Lindsay's
and they're buddy now.
Yeah, his credit, like Lindsay's credibility isn't that high, but his ideology, so to speak, is being parroted by other people, and Neil Shenby's one of those. So in that sense, he is a hack. I might have actually had him as a hack until obviously Tobias Riemenschneider was just like, I'm the guy that'll just go hard. And I'll literally be a hack on the Eschatology Matters podcast in my inaugural episode and just try to go for the fences and, light torches over Joel Webbin. So he was kind of like,
I feel like
call it a sacrificial lamb, but you're just the soulless guy that'll go out there and do something.
I feel like we can give him another award on this list. He is worthy. Because there's some categories that I don't have filled out. I think I could fill him in. But Neil Shenby, I think, deserves hack of the year. The way he's tried to defend J.D. Greer's reputation on Black Lives Matter, because he called Black Lives Matter a gospel issue. It is in the transcript. He did that. And then he tried to lie and say that these people in the organization tried to subvert Black Lives Matter. No, they literally coined the phrase. And they've been monetizing it for several years at that point. So we're going to give that to Neil Shenby. I think Ramen Grifter will get his soon enough. Rookie of the year. Who you got?
This one I did Truthscript.
I thought they were 2023.
No, well, am I wrong on that? But I mean, my argument is, as far as an infantile organization, I thought they did good. I think they found kind of their rhythm because I like the American Churchman podcast. I like John Harris and Matthew Pearson, teaming up and doing attributes of God to open up the first 15 minutes of a podcast that's supposed to be about their articles. So, I really enjoyed that. And
it started in 2023 after a few years of ongoing conversation between theologically conservative evangelicals from various traditions.
Okay, so
not their rookie season. Okay, so Jennifer says, what about Megan Basham for activists? You didn't want to consider her an activist.
I mean, I'd be open to that, but I think as far as activism goes, I don't know. Daniel Penny's probably
I don't know if she would consider herself an activist, though. Maybe I should ask. Hey, Megan, do you consider yourself an activist? Because I know Janet Mefford would come on here and say, Clear Truth Media. Okay, so here's why I cannot say yes to that. They are a house divided. They wrote an article endorsing the Dietrich Bonhoeffer movie. They got Joel Berry on their board. And I'm not... Jamie Bambrick makes great YouTube videos, but I don't know... I don't really think he's super based. And then they also have people like Jared Moore and stuff like that. So they're just pretty divided. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what to expect with Clear Truth Media.
The dust has not settled on them.
And as far as are they better than TruthScript, I would say probably not.
So, yeah, the dust isn't settled on them yet.
Because again, they are trying to be gospel coalition, or they're trying to take that void.
But I don't think, first of all, I don't think you can. I think that's an impossible mission on the surface. But second of all, I don't know how necessary it is. I think we need more news gathering and news gathering, actually. We have a lot of commentary. So I have Hulk Hogan, Russell Brand, and Jaden Daniels. So obviously I threw in a sports reference because, I like to...
I've watched quite a bit of Jaden Daniels because...
Jaden Daniels is definitely the NFL's Rookie of the Year, in my opinion. Definitely not finger fingernail painting Caleb Williams, who doesn't know how to do a 2-minute drill to save his life. This is not Keith Foskey's rookie year.
No, he's been around.
Yeah, he's been making excellent. I mean, I had him on a live stream like over the summer, I believe, but he's been around. He has a larger channel than me. He's been around longer, I'm pretty sure. I remember him from at least a year ago.
I mean, we could always say the American Churchman.
I mean, I like Jaden Daniels. Russell Brand, I mean, I don't want to give it to him, and then he just deconstructs and like, no. Hulk Hogan was technically baptized in December of 2023. But Hulkamania was excellent. Let me tell you. Trumpomania, sorry. That was excellent. What do you think?
I mean, even you can make the argument like, actually, no,
I'm thinking Jaden Daniels is the one I don't regret, and because Hulk Hogan was baptized in 2023, that hurts his ability to be a rookie in 2024. And that's the same with Keith Foskey. I don't consider him a rookie in 2024. Like, this is supposed to be someone who's either a rookie in athletics or came onto the scene and just is absolutely crushing it. So I think Jaden Daniels is the one that qualifies the most, because Russell Brand, I feel like there's a 30% chance we give this award to him and regret it in a year. Comeback of the year. This one, there's some obvious ones. Donald Trump is the obvious comeback of the year.
Donald Trump was the one I had on the list for probably the longest time. But I did think of two others.
I got three others.
So one would be J.D. Hall. And I think his return to Protestia and a lot of the impact he's able to have and a lot of the insight he's able to bring, especially with a lot of these feuds that are going on, because he's the guy that he's been around the block, so he kind of knows the ins and outs of these needless feuds. So
he's really based.
So J.D. Hall, and the other one I considered was Willie Rice as like maybe an early comeback.
No, that happened in 2023. He gave a nominating speech in 2023. I don't think
that's not as strong as the other two.
No on Willie Rice. So I have Creed, the band.
Wow.
Can he take me higher? Right? That they've made a comeback in 2024.
That is true.
It's objectively true. They kind of also became like a white boy summer band, associated with that. Comedy. I think comedy made a comeback in 2024. So Netflix actually allows comedy now. Like the roast of Tom Brady was very politically incorrect and then aired on Netflix. And here we have, we kind of made fun of Jeff Durbin's late night show the other week, but in terms of comedy goes, the people that, Daily Wire and Lady Ballers, that's what I'm really trying to think of. Like, they tried to do comedy, it just did not work. But Netflix is doing comedy that's politically incorrect. Amazon Prime is somewhat doing comedy that's politically incorrect. So I do want to recognize that. I think and SNL is actually putting out some funny content. Like when they had Shane Gillis on, like that was pretty funny. And I don't think they aired this, but they had like a Limu Emu, like a dirty cop buddy comedy thing. And speaking of Netflix, Shane Gillis had a show that dropped that was pretty funny. So politically incorrect comedy is making a comeback in the mainstream. So I think that's something to highlight. I wrote an article on this. And meanwhile, like all these conservative ink types, like the Daily Wire had that woodshop show we talked about. You remember what that was called? Was it actually called Wood? Was that called Wood?
Birchfield or something.
Birchwood or whatever. Yeah. Bircham, Mr. Bircham. The Daily Wire came out with that thing, and it's like they messed up the concept, because if they just made him a theater kid, our theater teacher, flip the concept around and have the woodshop teacher be super woke, it would have introduced a little bit of irony and it could have been funny. Instead, it was just as expected. But even worse, it wasn't Elon Musk, but Musk did promote this. It was these people that wanted to do like an Archie Bunker style show, which I'm not convinced Archie Bunker is like, I'm not convinced that holds up. I could be wrong. I Love Lucy does not hold up.
Yeah, I forget what that was called, but yeah, it was basically the same mistake as Mr. Bertram.
No, it was worse.
It was.
Mr. Bertram, you could have tweaked the concept and it could have been funny if you tweaked the concept. This was the norm, new normal or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. I don't.
And this, they came out with like a pilot episode and they never came out with any more. So that lets you know how bad this was. It was terrible. And there was nothing that could save this concept. It was just a bad concept from the start. And it tried to copy Archie Bunker, which I'm not really convinced is something to emulate because I'm not convinced that it holds up in 2024. Seinfeld holds up in 2024. I Love Lucy does not hold up, and I'm not even sure it really held up at the time because I've seen clips of it and it's just not funny. And then, yeah, Robert points out that Archie Bunker was subversion disguised as based. Yeah, I mean, I kind of get that impression as well.
Just like Yellowstone.
Just like Yellowstone, yes. So, but I think Donald Trump gets comeback of the year. Just,
I mean, it's Return of the King, and
so everything else we're discussing is honorable mentions. Yeah, the Tim Allen Show is also kind of like that as well, subversive and stuff. Here we go. Best movie.
So I know we watched Horizon, so that would be an honorable mention.
There's 3 movies that I got as honorable. 4 movies that I have as honorable mentions.
I think Nosferatu is worthy of consideration, just because.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I watched it over the weekend.
Oh, really?
And so it is good. Obviously, not for everyone, but it is kind of like we need more movies. If we want movies to be good, we need movies like that. Obviously, Horizon's kind of the beginning of a 4-part series or something, so that has a lot of potential.
Yeah, I liked Horizon. It was pretty based about, Native Americans savaging white people for like no reason, and that leading to a conflict. So, best movie was Civil War. That movie was too boring. I love the scene, what kind of American are you? I love that scene, but let's be real. It was kind of a snooze. But it shouldn't have been.
I saw something, the tweet today. She's like, yeah, the Cybertruck blowing up in front of Trump Towers is more on the nose than the Civil War movie with regards to Trump. Just like
a little bit. So yeah, I mean, Deadpool versus Wolverine is definitely the best comic book movie that's been made in a long time. Definitely the best Marvel movie since Infinity War. Low bar, if not better than Infinity War. I don't know. Oh yeah, Wolverine was also on my list of comebacks from the previous award. Just saying, that was a good comeback for Hugh Jackman. Godzilla -1 was last year, and in retrospect, it probably deserved movie of the year last year, but we didn't see it in time. Same with the Marvels should have probably won worst movie of the year last year, but we didn't see it in time. I do want to float out Dune Part 2. It does deserve to be in the conversation. It was long. It was epic. The movie just didn't enjoy itself. And that's the problem with the movie, because Zendaya was the voice of the director in many cases, also echoing Emily Blunt's character in Sicario. So there's a lot of... so Zendaya gave a very bad performance, which kind of undermines the movie.
And it's not better than the first one. I think that's definitive. So, like, that to me is why it's not even, like, it wasn't even under consideration, because it's not better than part one.
So I also got to float juror number 2, which is Clint Eastwood's movie, which I honestly think is, first of all, it's under 2 hours, which is a good thing. It's a mid-budget movie, which we need more of. Warner Brothers tried to sabotage this movie. They didn't really put it in the theaters, and I don't know why they didn't put this movie in the theaters, because it was good. This was a solid movie. It's Clint Eastwood's perhaps last movie, because as far as I know, he does not have any other movies on the pipeline. So this movie is about a juror that thought he hit a deer a year ago, but then realizes that he's guilty of killing someone that he gets to be a juror on the murder trial for. So it's like an American short story or a science fiction plot line retold, told in a modern and compelling way about what most people, how people would wrestle with this moral dilemma. And I actually think that we need more movies that kind of challenge our sensibilities like this. And I thought it's worthy of movie of the year. It should have made it to theaters. Your thoughts on that? Because
I mean, it's certainly worthy of the conversation. I mean, obviously, I think Nosferatu would be a very good display of cinematography. But as far as an original story, juror number 2 is probably a more original story. And it is something we do need more storytelling like it, and solid cast, solid actors. I mean, J.K. Simmons, I like.
yeah, and that Nick Holt, whatever his name is, he's actually done a lot of good movies. The Menu is a pretty solid movie. I for one love cheeseburgers, so I appreciate that scene. And it's a horror satire, so you know what it is going in. So I'm going to give juror number 2 best movie. I just think it's one of the Gospel Coalition wasn't wrong about that being in the top 10 movies of the year. They were wrong about giving Gladiator 2 an honorable mention, though. I believe they left out Horizon as well. So Horizon and Dune Part 2 deserve honorable mentions. I won't speak anymore on Deadpool versus Wolverine, but making fun of Marvel. But anyway, best TV show. Do you have anything for this?
I have Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman. As far as debuting on Netflix, it was an early drop, but it was probably the best thing to come out that year. Obviously, Guy Ritchie's a great director, and he brings his movie The Gentleman into a TV show, which is very compelling, very good, very well done. And it's about basically pot dealing in Britain, because the estate taxes are so punitive that you need to basically have an illegal enterprise happening on your land so that you can afford the government taxes.
And that's what show?
The Gentleman.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
And again, it's got Guy Ritchie's directive style. And, Netflix actually did put out some good TV shows this year. They also obviously have their...
I like the Shane Gillis show that came out, but
Yeah,
I don't think it's worthy of best show of the year.
They have plenty of clunkers. But yeah, as far as The Gentleman, it brings a top-notch director to a TV platform.
Let me catch up on some chat. The Menu was a remake of Willy Wonka. That's good. And then, can Napoleon get worst movie of the year this year? 2023. So no. Yeah, I don't have anything. I'll give it to Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman per your deference. I don't watch a whole lot of TV. I watch movies. I watch some sports. I play more video games. Book of the year goes to Megan Basham's Shepherds for Sale.
I mean, there's quite a bit of honorable mentions for this as well. We've already discussed the merits of Shepherds for Sale. One would be Total State by Aaron McIntyre. As far as like a basic overview of a lot of the political theory that is relevant, he kind of gives you a basic introduction and gives you the list as well. So if you wanted to actually like do the readings, you can take this book and do the readings. Another would be Jeremy Carl's Unprotected Class, which I don't have a copy of, but that's another book that's very similar to Christopher Caldwell's Age of Entitlement in terms of diagnosing the problem.
Wrong. Book of the year is Winning Not Winsome. 10 Commandments of Spiritual
I
Warfare.
half thought you would have said this and then been like, yeah, we're not considering anything else. It has to be this.
I'm gonna give Megan Basham her flowers. She deserves it. Her book sold more than mine. But you know, and this was a learning experience for publishing a book for me. I don't think I'd do it the same way again. So I won't be doing it the same way for the next one. Maybe I'll approach someone like Ogden, Utah, New Christendom Press. I'll approach them, but I tried to reach out to publishers, and then it was not a fun process working with publishers, and then working with self-publishing service. I don't think was as profitable as it should have been. So who knows? Mistakes were made, but lessons were learned. And it's way more expensive to do it the way I did it now because of all the inflation that's happened since. So the process took a long time. I was ultimately happy with some of the cover. I really like, but how long everything took, and then everything went really fast, and then how long things would take. Not an enjoyable process in the post writing of a book, but I'm not sure it ever is. Go with Canon. I'm sure that'll work out great. Canon Press, they don't take unsolicited query letters. So I don't know how to get in with Canon Press without a lit agent. We got a video game of the year.
I mean, I think Helldivers too, for kind of being like a schlocky parody of what is it? The Bugs.
Yeah, you're thinking Starship Troopers.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that. As far as being like a bug hunt, it was able to drive some conversation.
Okay, that came out this year.
Or yes, that was I think January or February release.
All right, there we go. And then what we got?
Worst
movie. This one's a conversation for sure. But I really think there's a clear answer. But let's start out with Rebel Moon Part 2. Yeah, it is worthy of the conversation. This is Zack Snyder's movie. It is an anti-movie.
Yeah, I mean, this is like they tried to be the Titanic. They tried to do it's basically Zack Snyder being a terrible storyteller and at every facet of the movie.
Intentionally bad storytelling. Like, it was not accidentally bad. It was intentionally bad.
But it's like it thinks it's high quality art when it's not.
I mean, it's bad science fiction, which is offensive to me. Bringing back villains who weren't good villains.
Having spaceships powered by coal like they're the Titanic, and then doing a Titanic like scene with
it's
diegetic
like,
noise.
You have a spaceship that can go faster than light, and it's powered by
coal.
Shoveling coal. What?
Like every facet of this movie makes you stupider.
Yeah, it is really bad. But it was buried on Netflix. Everyone knew it would be bad. Mary. Let's talk about Mary. That was a very bad movie as well. More boring than Journey to Bethlehem, which was a musical. Which we'll talk more about musicals in a second. But Mary was a bad movie, blasphemous, not a faithful. Okay, 300 was not a good movie. I hated 300. I'm a history buff. So when I go into 300, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a movie about the Battle of Thermopylae. Nope. It was not a movie about the Battle of Thermopylae. It was a movie about a graphic novel.
I mean, Watchmen. He did Watchmen after that. So
yeah, I mean, Watchmen was better than 300. I did not like 300. It was bait and switch, and every character was one-dimensional. Hated it. I'm a bit of a history buff myself, so
And
I thought I
I
was
don't
bait and switch. I didn't think it was be based on a graphic novel. I thought it'd be a historical epic, sword and sandal. Nope.
and I don't mind Man of Steel, even though I think that was Nolan, but it was still Snyderverse. So
Yeah, I thought Henry Cavill's Superman had a better character, was morally upright compared to Christopher Reeve's Superman. Just saying. Okay, so we got some hate for 300 in the chat. I felt like a minority opinion on that because it's like considered this masculine bro movie, and it's like I watched it for the first time and I hated it. Mean Girls musical? No, just
you
gonna
know that's
pretend
not
like
going
that
to be
doesn't
good. You know
exist.
that's not going to be good.
It didn't even go to theaters.
I mean, but that's the thing with Mary, though. You kind of know going in, it's probably going to be very blasphemous. It's probably just going to be insulting the source
Conclave.
material.
I did not see Conclave, but I know it was not good and it was kind of gay. It was an art house film. But I think we know what the worst movie of the year is, right? Joker 2.
Yeah, this was a big budget flop that basically was just a gut punch to the fans of the first movie while trying to relitigate the movie. I mean, first of all, the concept of making a sequel to Taxi Driver or The King of Comedy doesn't actually work because those movies are standalone movies. But then you do a sequel where the Joker isn't, spoiler alert, the Joker isn't even the real Joker.
So what was the point of the first movie?
Exactly. And so they basically made a movie to tear at the fabric of the other movie, of the movie that made $1 billion at the box office. I don't know if I've ever actually seen that.
So this was not only a crime to movies, and specifically the movie of its predecessor, Joker 1, which honestly is,
Oscar
I don't want to say
nominated.
it's one of my favorite movies of all time, but it's up there.
Like that's an Oscar nominated, probably one of the best comic book movies ever made.
It is cinema that takes comic book characters and it already has a good movie on it, and it basically just combines two really good movies of the past into one story with the Joker as a character in it. So this was a crime to films, but it was also a crime to musicals. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that musicals are not inherently gay. Just gonna go out on a limb and say that. And I don't need to say no homo for saying that either. But with that said, the songs were mumbled. They were often not original. None of the songs were compelling. This was like worse than Frozen 2 in terms of the musical numbers. And Joaquin Phoenix can't really sing. Lady Gaga, I don't think she's a bad singer, but it didn't really show that she was a good singer in this movie. And here's the thing. In a musical, the songs are supposed to drive the plot. They are either supposed to do world building, exposition, world building, or drive the plot. In Joker 2, they would have a scene that explains something and then do a song that explains that thing again that they just had a scene for. It was redundant. The musical numbers were redundant. And thus the movie is nearly 2.5 hours long for like no reason. So there's my rant about musicals and what they should do and what the Joker 2 did horribly. And they have a scene in the movie where he gets
Violated
in a prison. So,
and then after that, he quits being the Joker or something.
I know that's what causes character development. So I think Joker 2 is hands down worst movie of the year. And here's the thing. Here's what we're kind of getting to. We mentioned some movies that YouTubers wouldn't mention, like Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic thought that Madam Web was worthy of a conversation of worst movie of the year. No, that was a mediocre superhero movie there were a lot of bad movies made this year, but that wasn't one of them. Or that wasn't one of the worst. It was mediocre. But, all the movies we've talked about so far, like those were really bad, for sure. None of them talked about Mary because that was an atrocious film. Meme of the year.
No, we didn't do worst TV.
Oh, worst TV show. Sorry.
So I had Rings of Power season 2. Obviously,
Okay.
Amazon's glorified money pit of bad Lord of the Rings content, and I think that kind of speaks for itself. And
so I've heard House of the Dragon season 2 wasn't very good. I've heard Rings of Power season 2. Yeah, there's a Star Wars show or two that weren't good. This was a tough year for TV. Specifically shows that weren't on my radar that were really bad that I watched a lot of content on. But yeah, unless anyone in the chat disagrees, I think Rings of Power can get worst TV show.
And considering how much they spent on it as well.
Yeah, that is something you have to factor in. Do you have a worst book?
No.
I do not either.
I'm sure we can come up with someone like a Neil Shenby who published a book this year and give it to him. I think he might have, but I could be wrong.
Super Earth is run by bagels. What?
And I don't know.
Oh. Okay. I know what you're saying. That's code. I don't know what Super Earth is. Is that a comic book show? Yeah. And then do you have a video game, worst video game? I feel like Assassin's Creed Shadows didn't come out this year, right?
I feel like a lot of bad games got delayed or something. Like, I'm not quite sure. Obviously, I know they, as a Witcher guy, I saw like the trailer for Witcher 4, and people weren't liking what they did to Ciri.
Help me out. Didn't a Star Wars game come out this year?
I believe that did happen. Or that's the one that they're talking about that's getting trashed before the release. So there's a lot of games out there that were trashed, even though they didn't quite come out, or it's like what they were. Super.
So Star Wars Outlaw. I've seen gameplay for Star Wars Outlaw and it looks horrendous.
So that might be it, because I think that's made by EA, and EA took a beating on that game.
Or was it Ubisoft that made that?
No.
Either way, neither one of those companies are renowned for making good games anymore.
Yeah, I mean, they're both DEI ruined that. This is what happens when you let women into the boys club, and all the guys that make great video games. And
Call of Duty 6 or Black Ops 6. Was there any expectations for that?
I mean, it's basically Triple A schlock at this point.
Call of Duty ruined itself and is, because they wanted to be like Fortnite, which I think Fortnite has killed video games.
I think
in many ways.
So if you're looking forward for 2025, I think it's Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 comes out in February. They delayed the release, so otherwise it actually could have been best game of the year for this year, but they did delay the release.
All right.
And so
we're going to Star Wars Outlaw, because I've seen the gameplay for it and it was horrendous.
And people like the Star Wars Battlefront or whatever. Like those are well-regarded games back in the 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, video games are super expensive. That's one of the reasons, and they're putting so much effort on graphics instead of content and gameplay, and it's almost like
the graphics have actually regressed.
Yeah. It's kind of like CGI in movies. It's actually gone downhill in the last 14 years.
All the H-1B visas that'll work 60 hours for coding, and like the games actually look worse.
Yeah. All right. Meme of the year.
I mean,
is it the one meme that started the entirety?
It is the Holocaust meme.
That started the Holocaust meme.
I mean, because we could talk about the Haitian cat and Trump memes, but there's not really.
What about the what kind of American are you? Does that count as 2024? Because I kind of think the trailer came out for that in 2023.
It might have. I mean, I don't think the smoke alarm meme is. I don't know which year that came out on. Obviously, Darth MAGA was a meme of this year in this election cycle. But again, that's not necessarily one meme, and neither is the Haitian cat meme.
All right. The infamous Holocaust meme.
Yes, because
it doesn't win on humor, but it does win on impact.
Yes. While also being mildly worthy of a mild chuckle.
I don't really think it's all that funny, but it is. It did make an impact, and wow, what an impact it had. We're actually doing really well on time compared to the last previous years for this live stream. NPC of the year. This one's pretty tough.
No, I thought we had some consensus on this being Joel Berry and the Babylon Bee.
Joel Berry is my front runner. I also have Daniel Darling and Owen Strachan.
I mean,
as dishonorable mentions, but I think Joel Berry gets this.
I mean, Owen Strachan certainly tapered off as the year went on, as far as
Joel Berry was consistent.
Yes,
cringe. So I think Joel Berry is NPC of the year. I think he sealed that in December. He wanted to be the NPC, and the funny thing is, he thinks he's an original thinker. Even though he's just spouting off James Lindsay talking points, he thinks he's original. He thinks he came up with that. So, absolutely an NPC. I don't think James White is an NPC. I think he's... I think he's I think he's an emotional, maybe easily manipulated kind of guy. But Owen Strachan, yeah, but Joel Berry, this was his year.
And it's also like his reactions are very predictable as far as Joel Berry goes.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is a good one. The after party for the worst book. I will double check that came out in 2024, but I will write it down. Here we go. Mangina for Effeminacy. I think this goes to Tobias Raymond Schneider.
Okay, so you had this one. I had James Lindsay for this.
I think Tobias needs it.
He needs it. I mean, you've robbed me on him for hack, so I guess he's got to get something.
Okay.
But at least his grandmother liked Adolf Hitler. That was such a fun factoid.
And then we got the Fake and Gay Award, which I introduced last year. It's kind of redundant to the award we just did.
But is it really? Because I have the Antioch Declaration as championing fake and gay.
Ouch. But, man, James Lindsay. So, are you familiar with the Why Are You Gay Awards?
Yes.
James Lindsay, last I checked, was winning that award for 2024. And I think I want to defer to him.
Okay, so there was an independent pollster.
Yes.
Which I think had like James White. It might have also had Owen Strachan on it. So it had all the usual characters.
And yet James Lindsay won.
And I did vote for James Lindsay.
All right, we got Chad of the Year.
I went with Katie Vance.
I got Samuel Holden. White Boy Summer.
I went JD Vance.
I don't know. I mean, this is
the type of guy that was smoldering on TV in the vice presidential debate, while also, he's the type of guy that will bring his Indian wife to a meat factory that slaughters cows. That's some Chad energy right there. And he eats out of burger joints. So, I mean, he might have...
he makes his wife make him a hamburger, is what you're saying?
I mean, guy went to a beef factory.
Yeah, but Samuel Holden and the White Boy Summer crowd, I think they created a vibe that was palatable in the atmosphere of the election. So I'm willing to say Samuel Holden and the rest of the White Boy Summer. because I think they deserve some love. And we got loser of the year. This one was a poll question. So let's see who the patrons suggested. And drum roll, please. This is between James Lindsay and Kamala Harris. And we have a tie. But I also did a Twitter poll on this. So let's go with the Twitter poll for the results. And the result is 65.9% went with James Lindsay over the 34.1% who went with Kamala Harris.
And the argument is, and I did have Kamala, but the argument for Kamala is that the argument against Kamala is that she was expected to lose. She never really had a chance. Her campaign was just basically a giant treasury looting operation that was almost designed to pay out influencers.
I like this comment. Seriously, Kamala had the best year of her life. She'll never be bigger than she was last year.
Yeah, I mean, this was maybe not as high as she'll get because she might actually get like more high in the future, just a different type of high. But yeah, she was able to live the high life and kind of like have the limelight, and she'll never have it again. So I guess in that sense, she was winning. But
did she really think she would be president?
She was also very much expected to lose.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that she would perform worse than Joe Biden went on Electoral College because Joe Biden has a hood pass. She does not have a hood pass. Hillary Clinton didn't have a hood pass, and she did even worse than Hillary Clinton. So, yikes. But if you lose the poll for loser of the year, does that make you the actual loser of the year? Because if James Lindsay could win loser of the year, doesn't that make him not loser of the year anymore? This is a paradox.
I mean, the argument for him is obviously his credibility is kind of through the floor. He's got a large following, but he has zero influence. And I think we had him as church villain for 2023. So, but the fact is, I think the exposure
he's a defeated villain.
Yes, I think the exposure is happening. He has been thoroughly lampooned.
And Kamala could have a comeback. Might run for governor of California. But no one expected Kamala to win. And then I guess we're on to our last category. So James Lindsay, loser of the year. Last category and last award, we're almost done. Winner of the year. And I think Donald Trump is the obvious winner of the year.
He won the election.
He won. So winner of the year. I thought Vladimir Putin might emerge as a winner of the year. Because I did predict that in Ukraine, the battlefield would be, I predicted last year because we had this conversation on last year's stream. And I said that 2024 would be the year that Russia would see massive victories in Ukraine. And that has happened. Ukraine's lost on the battlefield. But honestly, I don't know why Russia's so slow.
And they did take a loss in Syria. Well, even if that's like a punt in football where they're just...
Here's the thing. Arabs don't fight. Arabs are not... they are not a martial people. And even when the mercenaries were recapturing Syria for the Syrian army, the Syrian army was retreating from... I forget what the city was, like Palmyra. They retreated from that and they had to retake it because they are not a martial people. They just aren't. And these terrorists were able to take like 15,000 people and overrun the Assad government. They didn't fight. And the most important thing in a battle is actually morale, historically speaking. So, they're a low morale people. Bad work ethic. And stuff like that. So, my thoughts on that. And I don't know whether morale hurts the cause in Russia and the Ukraine thing. But I don't know. A little slow there, Vlad. A little slow. But, you did really good in an interview with Tucker Carlson, but otherwise, who else would be winner of the year? I don't think Elon Musk ended the year on a high note.
I mean, yeah, Tesla stock took a dump before the year end, but I'm still up. And
But
he had
Trump, like it or not, I'm just fielding
but his
honorable
victory,
mentions.
comes off Trump's victory.
So I don't know who else even deserves an honorable mention at this point. The North Koreans need some combat experience. I've not seen any actual evidence other than people saying that North Koreans are in Ukraine. There's no actual evidence of that.
It wouldn't
And
surprise me,
Eastern Russian, it wouldn't surprise me, but Eastern Russians look Asian. So how do we know they're not, not all Asians look alike, right? Right. Anyway, so yeah, Donald Trump winner of the year. And that wraps up our Eva Awards. So James Lindsay did pretty well tonight, as did Donald Trump with 2 awards each. Just trying to see any other commonalities. Steve Lawson. A lot of the major stories impacting the major awards, but yeah. Any other final thoughts before we conclude? Because this is 2.5 hours. So
I mean, so 2025 should be looking up on the up and up, even though we've had a rocky couple days with some of the infighting on the Trump coalition. But we should look forward to 2025. There's a lot of fertile soil out there with regards to the church and the greater environment. Of the revival, and a lot of pastors out there. You got go to work and sow the seeds.
Yeah, I have no plans to just lay siege to Moscow until Doug Wilson surrenders. Like, why would I do that? That's such a waste of time. Let's just take all the rest of Idaho and Montana and Colorado and Utah. No reason to lay siege to Moscow because Doug Wilson wants to be the way he is.
Yeah, but also be on the lookout, especially if they do start, deportations and efforts like that. You're going to have the Big Eva types come out and do the care about the refugee and the Trump in cages talking points.
Yeah, so we got work to do. Well, that's all I got for tonight. My name is Rez, Evangelical Dark Web. Have a blessed night. Stay based. Christ is King, and we will catch you on the next one.